Hey, welcome, everybody. The live stream has begun. We have gotten to it. Sorry, we were running a little late. We were shuffling around trying to figure a few things out. Tim will be not joining us this evening. He is on assignment, as they like to say in the business. I think that's what they say. I don't know. That's what I'm going to say.
They say.
Yeah. So if you've got, thank you for watching. If you've got questions or comments, you can leave them, and we will, as we can, we will get to them and maybe address them in the show. Maybe not. It really depends, honestly, if we see them in time. Yeah, I think that's basically the groundwork. Am I forgetting anything, Mo, Mike, Nate?
No, you're not.
No,
You're good.
no comments. I think we're good. You ready to go, Chad?
I'm ready to go.
All right, let's kick it off. And welcome to the Beer Guys Radio Show. Thank you for joining us. We are talking with NoDa Brewing this week. I am Brian Hewitt, and Tim Dennis is on assignment this week. So in his place, we have Mo, Mike, Nate. Mo, Mike, how are you doing?
I'm doing well. We're talking with Chad Henderson, the co-owner and head brewer for NoDa Brewing. Today we're going to be talking about GABF, their recent 12th anniversary slurp, and some fall pumpkin beers. Chad, how you doing?
Doing great. How are you guys?
Doing well.
Not bad at all. We were just talking about at least here. I don't know if you've seen it there, but here it seems like overnight, the minute it hit fall, the weather changed. It's been
Yeah.
dark. It's been cooler. I mean, it's almost as if it were on cue, and it feels like that never really happens typically.
Yeah. No. Usually one of the seasons comes in charging way early, or the other one lingers around forever. So I'll take the
Mhm.
switch, dramatic switch. It's been a little hot this year.
You got to
I
remember, though, we do get caught up with those false seasons. I feel like we've had false fall down here. Because
yeah,
I looked
Mhm.
at the forecast, we've got nothing but like low to mid 80s for the next 10 days down here in
Oh yeah.
Georgia.
that's
Same in Charlotte.
that's a fair point. We do have a lot of the false starts on fall, and I think sometimes fall never really happens. It just suddenly eventually becomes winter. I know I've been in like
Yeah.
shorts and a
It can be
t-shirt for like
skipped.
Thanksgiving, so just crazy. Um, so I was looking around social media this week, and I noticed a neat little infographic popped up. I don't know if you guys have seen this, but it's like what the different generations are drinking in terms of alcohol. And well, what would you guys expect, say, like Gen Z to be doing right now? Do you think they're more into the alcohol consumption or less? And I think you might have an idea already where I'm going with this.
I
I'll
mean, with the
Uh,
younger crowd, I feel like they are drinking a little bit less. Well, I don't know because they've been having nothing but trial and turmoil, and especially in the last 5 or 6 years, it's been pretty hectic. And traditionally, people would, commiserate with a drink or two.
yeah,
I
yeah.
think that I think that with the whole expansion of the non-alcohol segment and its massive amounts of growth, and then also the recent kind of rise and then stagnation of the seltzer slash F&B market, and then also I think with the social media presence and everyone feeling like they can make their own stuff as their own person a star, and to take in influences from so many different individuals, especially people being really health conscious. I think that there's a much larger group of younger people that are like pushing away from alcohol consumption in general, or going straight to like alternative lifestyle stuff with the non-alcoholic or seltzers and things of that nature. So I would imagine it would be less overall, but I do feel like there's a credence to the whole, like, alcohol is there when you're happy and when you're sad, and with all the fun ups and downs that we've had in the last couple of years, with of course sarcasm included, that there's plenty of room for alcohol moving into it. But I just think that, especially with the NA getting so popular now, it's I would imagine it'd be less.
Yeah, you know what? And your thoughts on the purpose and the place of alcohol in all different moods and occasions would generally be agreed upon by millennials and probably Gen X and even baby boomers. But you guys are correct. Gen Z, who I really was meaning to talk about here, are they're behind in all the different categories. I was looking at the infographic. They've got it split out between beer, wine, spirits, and hard seltzer. And the only point at which Gen Z is competitive with any of the other generations is on the hard seltzer part. Like the baby boomers they're not buying that at all. They're like maybe 4% share overall. Uh, Gen X, which I belong to, we're only at like 10%, and I think that we should be closer to the boomers because I've never had any desire to get into the hard seltzers. But yeah, millennials are you know what, they're actually a little ahead of them on that. In fact, the millennials have everybody beat in every category across the board. So right now, if you're running a successful alcohol production business, you really need to thank the millennials because they're
Yeah.
keeping you afloat. Like Gen Z is doing or Gen X is doing all right. Baby boomers are holding tight, but they're getting older. But yeah, the millennials are your bread and butter at the moment. And
Yeah.
I have to wonder, just looking at that, will Gen Z change their mind at some point, or are they perpetually just going to be the healthier generation? Anybody have thoughts on that? Chad, maybe you think that they're going to grow into some appreciation of booze, or are they always just going to be health nuts?
I certainly hope they do. I mean, we would definitely like for them to go on and start appreciating some stuff more. I think there's a constant uh, like cultural subconscious thing that tries to do something different than what the predecessing generation did. And I look at a lot of people in I guess I would be considered a millennial. It depends on where you want the cutoff on it, but I'm like right on that border of being either millennial or a Gen X. But I wasn't interested in bourbon at all until I got it into my mid to late 30s. Before that, I was really into craft beer, but that's because it was not the typical everyday drinking beer that I saw my generation before me drink. And I think in that generation, you sort of had the boom of craft beer just starting. It really hadn't swollen. So most people, if they were beer drinkers, drank either mass produced macro beer or they drank whatever the local version of that was. And so in my generation, which I'll be 40 next year, born in 84. So I think that there's a lot of people put the millennial cutoff at like 82 or 83 for start on it. But if you look at like people now in their 30s or whatever, like I feel like craft beer kind of is almost the antithesis to like what the macro concept is. And I feel like that was my generation going like, we're going to really pay attention to our beers and look how weird our beer stuff is. And now I feel like the Gen Zs, I think I do think the health thing is a big part of it. And I actually come from the medical industry, and so I follow a lot of stuff on health, fitness, and dietary things and everything like that, while also making beer. So it works out well to balance. But I think it's not only that. I think that it's also the craft beer thing has pushed so heavily, like the artistry and the science behind so much of that production and how things are going and where things are sourced and everything like that. And that really spoke to people who wanted to source things naturally or on a smaller scale and things of that nature. I think that the younger generation honestly is just tired of hearing about that stuff. And I feel like the seltzers, they're so straightforward and they're so easy to conceptualize and understand. I was in the grocery store the other day, and when we make a seltzer, so I'm not saying that you should drink. You drink whatever you want. I don't really. I care because I would like it to be
definitely drink the
our
NoDa
beer.
seltzer.
Yeah. So please do drink ours if you can. But like I'm not gonna blame someone for not wanting to drink beer. But that's why we make so many different types. But I was in the store and there was a group of college students. Like they looked like very young 20s, and they were completely freaking out on like a watermelon White Claw that they had just seen and stuff like that. And I couldn't have gripped my my basket harder. Like in the process was like, why are you guys so excited for this? But it is what it is, and it's just like so. One of my most R&D focused and research based brands that we've been doing is my Slurp series, and you would think that sounds fun and playful, which it is. I mean, we have like big slurp and little slurp and slurp surfing, and we've had a bunch of different variations of it, like slurps on a plane, just to be fun with the word slurp. But slurp actually stands for Superior Lupulin Utilization Research Project. So it's been utilizing multiple different processes and products, specifically basing IPAs off of a thiol enhancement / foundation for flavor, and then advancing the flavors through different mediums through that to achieve a much higher efficiency IPA, which addresses the biggest problems with IPA. But at no point on our labeling or anything like that does it say a single thing about thiol, or like even on we're just now putting on the box in a little small blip what Slurp actually stands for. So it's not just like an insider thing, but the whole packaging looks like it's off of like my old generation Nickelodeon like game show style is really bright and it's like slurp life,
Yeah,
sure, slurp it up.
for
It's
sure.
designed to be like a hey, late 20-year-olds or mid 20-year-old ones, like come get this stuff. It's fun. It's a fun, juicy IPA. Like have fun with it. Yep, exactly, just like that guy. So yeah, it's all like designed to be a fun beer first and foremost, but the entire backing of it speaks to more of the millennial generation. Like this is actually really crazy methodology. It's been a year and change doing R&D through help with multiple different avenues and providers to get this stuff exactly where we want it to be. And it's worked really well for us on a business side as far as making much more efficient production and stuff. But ultimately what goes out to the customer and how we promote it is like, it's slurp, have fun. Yeah, it's
Yeah,
it's still beer, but and we now have like a hop 2.0, which is a hop water, which is carbonated water enhanced with hops and then has a fruit flavor to combine with it and stuff like that to have like a non-alcoholic option and whatnot. So I mean, I think that as they get older, they'll mature into it. Just like as I got older, I got way more into bourbon and cocktails and things of that nature. And I think that as life changes, people slow down in some aspects, and I think there's a big part of craft beer and like the idea of savoring and enjoying like a finely made beverage that speaks to like a little bit of a slower lifestyle, whereas like the slam it while you're kayaking down a whitewater,
sure.
right? Like it doesn't. It's hard to appeal to every single perspective, and as much as we try to, there's obviously that pocket that really gets what we're trying to go for, and it's because what we know how to make most of it. And that's what we are. Like most of us on staff are around my age, more or less, and the founders of the brewery are a little bit older than I am, but it's just that whole mentality of us making high quality craft beer, no matter how we try to like portray it to different markets, that's still at the core of what it is. So I'm
Sure.
hoping that they will evolve into appreciating that more. The hardest thing about this industry is knowing what's next.
Mhm.
Whatever the next
Absolutely.
generation comes
Yeah.
out is like what they're going to be into. So it's just hard to tell. So you just got to keep your ear to the ground and just kind of try to interpret every little vibration you get.
It's really cool you say that. You touched on a lot of things there. Definitely, I could see the rebellion about what came before, like millennials super into everything, and to certain extent Gen X, everything about craft beer, all the technicalities, all the nuance, all of the processes, and the younger Gen Z are saying, I don't care, that's for the
Yeah.
older people to deal with. But there's also, yeah, absolutely that part where when you're younger, I think that you are just it's a little bit more of a focus on getting by and then having a really good time on the weekend and not really being too fussy about it. It's when you
Right.
get that leisure in your 30s and you're like, you know what, I've worked on making myself a little bit more established. Things are a little bit more comfortable. Let me really drill down and look into what I'm enjoying, what I'm eating, what I'm drinking, and let's
Mhm.
make the most of it and really develop some appreciation for it. And I think that rings true for me. And I'm definitely Gen X, late Gen X, but I'm definitely Gen X, and I definitely feel that is true for me. But you know what? I think we've covered that pretty thoroughly. You were mentioning the founders. I think maybe we get started and you tell us a little bit about the beginnings of NoDa, how it came to be, and how you came to be, a part of it. And
Sure.
yeah, let's introduce people. I think people probably are well aware of NoDa's there, but they may not know the full backstory.
Sure. Yeah. So we're the second oldest brewery still in operation in Charlotte. We'll be 12 years old next month in end of October. I am a co-owner, but I started out as the head brewer and still am the head brewer. And basically, I was really involved in the Charlotte kind of craft beer enthusiast scene where a bunch of home brewers or people that wanted to get out and just find out new craft beer. We had a bunch of different like social clubs and events, and I helped organize a fair amount of those. And all the free time I had was basically home brewing. And I found out that like this was absolutely what I wanted to do. I was working in the medical industry at the time, and craft beer had really kind of just started to boom in North Carolina, and Charlotte was kind of slow to pick up on it. But when it did, it really made the fact that it's the biggest city in the state really, gets presence known. So a lot of beer was coming into the city, and I got to know all the different reps and brewers, and and since I was home brewing, I was really good at like describing and kind of showcasing a lot of that stuff out to people. And I was like, I don't have the ability to go, like pick up and leave and go to like Siebel Institute or to UC Davis and try to learn how to brew. But I'm just going to ask everyone that knows more than me, which at that point, when you're a new home brewer, that's a lot of people. And there's, try to get involved with stuff online and everything like that. And thankfully, Charlotte had a very well-established homebrew club called the Carolina Brewmasters. And I got in with a lot of them and whatnot, and just tried to meet everyone involved in beer in Charlotte. And I kind of rudely interrupted a nice couple at a watering hole called the Pizza Peel. And I just because I was sitting up at the bar, I used to rotate. If I didn't have an event that night, I would go to one of the like 12 places in Charlotte that was renowned for craft beer, and I would get dinner and have a beer and talk to their staff and just see what's coming in and what was exciting and whatnot. And just getting myself out there, and then like 2 seats down from me, there was a gentleman and his wife talking, and he said something about growing hops in his backyard. And I was like, excuse me, and just like slid in. I was like, you must be a home brewer. And they were like, yeah, we are. And I met them, and it was Todd and Susie Ford. And then I met them in the homebrewing club, and we started entering homebrew competitions together and things like that, and just got friends with them and everything. And then eventually they came up and they're like, we're done with our 9-to-5 jobs that we've been tortured through for years and whatnot. Todd was a pilot, and Susie worked in banking and marketing. And they're like, we're going to take our whole, retirement, life savings, whatnot, and we're going to open up a brewery. And I was like, that's great. Let me know if you guys want to have an opening party. I didn't, that was all it was. And as they started kind of getting the ball rolling, they were like, wow, how are we going to find a brewer for it? And my name, because I just had been out there so much, like people were like, there's this guy named Chad that's dumb enough to jump in on that idea. Let's, just ask him. And they're like, we actually know him, and we make and agree on kind of the direction of beer we'd love to see Charlotte have. Because the oldest brewery still operating is Old Mecklenburg, and at the time, and mostly still true now, they do almost exclusively like German style beers. And Todd, being a pilot, was really into West Coast stuff. I was really into like stuff like Dog Bichette and Founders, and much more aggressive, like experimental sort of styles and whatnot. So we really just hit it off, and eventually they're like, let's just ask this guy. And they actually asked me at my flying saucer 5th plate party. And I jumped up on the table and screamed, F yeah. And so I left the medical industry and walked in the building for the first time right behind them, and then helped build out the spot. And we've been rolling ever since. We started out with 6 people in 2011 on a 15-barrel system, just expecting to be a little local neighborhood spot. And then when we were 11, NoDa, by the way, does not mean North Dakota. I know a lot of people like what does that mean? It is a neighborhood in Charlotte called standing for just North Davidson. It's just it's the downtown of Charlotte. Tryon is the spine of it, and about a couple roads south of Tryon is Davidson. And when you go right outside of the Tryon or this loop of what the main downtown area is, North Davidson becomes an arts district, and it's all like non-franchisable restaurants and bars and music venues and tattoo parlors and art galleries and stuff. And so we found a building there because it used to be a textile town, so to speak. And so we found this 11,000 square foot textile building, and we're like, let's just put it in a fermented art form in it. And so we opened up there, thought we would just serve immediately around us. And when we were 11 months old, we won silver medal at GABF for our porter, which gave us a little bit of momentum. And then 2 years later in 2014, we won, and I believe still are the only East Coast brewery to win the World Beer Cup in American IPA in for our hop, drop, and roll, which just skyrocketed us up like crazy. And suddenly we couldn't make enough of our stuff, and all the groceries chains wanted us and everything like that. So we really hit some gas going then. And then so in year 3, we had built out just a mile up the road a 35,000 square foot facility, where we found the facility, and put in a 60 barrel system there. And currently most of all of our production happens in that. So we're actually doing a 20,000 square foot expansion there now. We have about 60 employees now, so we've jumped from 6 to 60. And we'll do about 22,000 barrels this year. Hopefully next year around 25. And so we do a 60 barrel system with 2,500 barrels of fermentation capacity, and we'll have a 5-barrel pilot system. I should brewed on it today. And we do little R&D stuff off of that, and do limited release stuff from there. And our old facility still has its tap room, and we basically have all of our sour barrel aging happening over there. and extra storage and whatnot. We basically are, in the last 2 years, have fully saturated all of North and all of South Carolina, and that is, sorry, my screen's everywhere, and that is currently our only footprint that we have. And right now, that's the focus for us. We've always been a focus on planting the roots deeper instead of wider, sort of thing. So our biggest market is Charlotte. We have over 800 accounts just in Charlotte itself. So we self-distribute in the Mecklenburg County area. We actually changed the self-distribution laws in North Carolina, but basically we go through distribution partners, anything outside of that area, and also do obviously distribute down into South Carolina as well. So
are you moving? I see you moving our direction. Are you heading towards Georgia, or is that in the?
It's not out of it's not out of the question for sure. You know, but it's just really looking at what market. Georgia definitely has a strong reasoning for it, and also the beer scene's really good. The biggest thing you have to kind of weigh out, I think, is not only like where's a good beer scene, but also is like what will we add to the beer scene? You know, like we get people all the time like, when are you going to come out to Denver? I'm like, you guys are fine. Like we won't add much to the file there. We just like people are like, where in North Dakota?
You're not running short of IPAs out there. No,
exactly.
Not even close.
Exactly. So we want to go to where there's a good educated market, but also where there's actually room for us to do anything significant. So. And we've been very fortunate to win several more GABF awards as well, and all sorts of different categories. We kind of get pegged as being an IPA brewery, but we basically do just about every style you can think of, and we've gotten medaled for the whole rainbow of stuff, everything from lagers to dark beers to Belgians. Our pumpkin beers won 2 gold medals. When we've done real well also in like U.S. Open and North Carolina, championships and stuff like that. We mostly talk about the U.S. Open, World Beer Cup, and GABF, but we participate in a fair amount of other competitions as well. So not that that's everything, but it does show kind of style versatility, so to speak.
Sure. So speaking of the GABF stuff, that just happened, so we probably should do a little bit of talking about that. What beer has gotten you the most medals at GABF? I think you said the pumpkin's gotten 2, right? Yeah, we've got 2 gold medals for our pumpkin beer. That gorgeous, and that's the only one we've multiple medaled in at GABF. So we've done our porter, our Belgian wit beer, our Maibach, our pumpkin beer twice. And we actually became the first stylized beer with Big Slurp one last year in 2021 or 2022 for experimental IPA. So that was really cool to be the first on that. So, but yeah, the pumpkin beers won 2 gold medals in it, and we always kind of hope for it. That's a weird category too, because they keep splicing it or then recombining it. So we enter it in our pumpkin spice because even though we do use real pumpkin in it, like the predominant flavorings on it are spice oriented. So that's usually where we put it. But like not this year, it's just one big category of pumpkin beer. So it's like, are they looking for it to be very pumpkin forward, or are they looking for the spice to kind of carry it over? So we didn't win this year. Unfortunately, the state itself and the Carolinas did not do very well for showing. I mean, we'd still got a couple medals, but we did a lot smaller show than we normally do. But you don't go there expecting to win. You go there hoping. Sure. And I'll take any win we can get on it. But we didn't look out this year, and that's fine. It's just we almost used to say back in the day that we had an odd year curse where we'd only win on even years until 2021. Actually, I forgot when our Blondale won, and that broke the odd year curse on it or whatnot. But the idea to go in that, I don't like saying that much though, because that kind of goes in like, oh, we're expected to win on even years. I'm like, you don't expect to win. And we had 9,300 beers judged, over this past year. It's insane. So, and I do actually have some stats I'm going to go over here. You know what? Now is a good time for me to do it for the 2023 Great American Beer Festival. This was the 37th competition over the course of 41 years that they've been around doing this. They gave out 303 medals to 263 breweries in Denver this past weekend. They gave obviously gold, silver, and bronze to 99 beer categories and 175 beer styles. The competition is judged by 250 beer experts from 10 countries. It takes 9 days for them to do all the judging. And like you said, there's 9,298 beers that are entered into this competition from all 50 states, Washington, D.C., Puerto Rico. And on average, there are 92 in each style, with juicy and hazy IPA getting the most with 365 entries. That's one beer for every day of the year getting entered into that one category. So that's the number one category. The next
2 was the first timer. The second biggest one was the first time it's ever done as West Coast IPA.
The West Coast IPA, yeah.
Yeah,
And
because it's normally just American, so they split them
yes.
into American and West Coast.
Oh,
so
did they
that was
split
kinda
them?
cool.
Okay. Yeah.
which is I actually think is great. One, it really helps because they are kind of stylistically different now.
For sure. Yes.
And that also, like, American IPA when juicy would always be one or two, like a flip flop each year. So now splitting West Coast was still second biggest one, but American was something like 190 something or something like that. It was still huge, but it wasn't like 380 something entries into it because
True.
every West Coast and American, which I know it's weird to say the difference between them now, but
Yes.
culturally the Pacific Northwest has really kind of redefined how their IPA stands out. So
yeah, so West Coast had 301 entries. Light lager was, I think, in third place
Yep.
with 284. German style Pilsner, and this makes me so happy. Fourth place,
Yep.
228. And American style IPA, 206 entries. So those are, if you're looking to earn some medals, that's tough competition right there.
Yeah, it's very, very tough, very tough. Which is why you got. I mean, your nerves are all tore up going into it, and I am at a kind of a disadvantage. I only say I because I've been there every year from our company and all. But when you go in there at 11 months old and you win one, it can happen. If you go in there for a couple years in a row and you don't really get that worked up over it. But when you go in as a less than a year old brewery and you end up winning the robust porter category, it's like, whoa, and so that's on your head, that's in your mind, like the whole rest of every other year you go in there. So it's just with maturity and stuff like that, you just learn that it's like the odds are against you, and you shouldn't go to GABF thinking you're going to win unless you're a brewery like Breakside that wins like 3 to 6 medals every single year. I mean, like I don't think anyone should go in there expecting it. You should definitely celebrate when you do, and I mean, and congrats to everyone that did. But it is what it is. You go there for the inspiration, and we go there for the big prostate cancer charity that we do every year. And I got to take my youngest brewer up there for the first time she's ever been to GABF in Colorado in general. So it was as much about doing the charity work and getting her exposed to the grandiose of how big the scene is and everything like that for inspiration and motivation and all that sort of stuff. And I always find some sort of inspiration when I get up there to do different stuff. I had my first West Coast Pilsner there. It was really good. And you just get a whole lot of diverse stuff and a lot of people that have been doing it for way longer than we have in this whole region, let alone in Charlotte. And also, you always take something from it besides jet lag.
So
go ahead, Nate.
The Pipes for Prostates charity event. That's the Denver Rare Beer Tasting. Looking at it, I see that you've got a 10-year run from there. What are some of the beers that you had at? What can you tell us about this year's? I see it's Old New Monstro.
That was that was a few years ago.
Oh, okay. I'm sorry.
Yeah, this year I brought Twilight of the Thunder God, which is a very limited release that we did. That's a what I call a Nordic stout because it sounds cool partially, but also because it's what raw ale. Are y'all familiar with raw ale process at all?
Oh, is that you don't boil it? You heat it, but don't actually boil it? Is that
yeah?
Right?
So that's correct. And so that's kind of how all beer was made way back in the day, but that's how a lot of Scandinavian farmhouse beers are made right now. And then also they do their quick yeast or however you want to call it, the KVIEK yeast. So I used all European malts on it and made this big 10.5% beer that never boiled. It kept it at 170 degrees for 2.5 hours. And a lot of brewers would be like, well, what about DMS? But when you don't raise the wort past 178 degrees, you don't create the SMS predecessor to DMS. So it never forms. And what happens is when you don't boil it, all your starch change and proteins don't break down from the boil. So we end up getting this really hearty, full cereal flavor experience. And then I fermented on the quick yeast, being 10.5% alcohol in 2 days. And then I racked it over into a freshly emptied Great Wagon Road distilling whiskey barrels on the third day, right after they were emptied that morning, and they rested in that for 9 months. And people lost their minds on that beer. And obviously, the name references Thor's fight with Jormungandr at Ragnarok, which is actually a giant metaphor of being able to find balance in nature. And I was like, that's cool. I'll name a big 10.5% stout after that. And big metalhead too, so that helps. And that's a really good Viking metal song. And then the other one was Slurp Tsunami, which the Slurp series, like I said before, is the Superior Lupulin Utilization Research Project. And I've done a couple of different batches and small batches with that. And we had a really successful, actually did 3 releases of it already, called Slurp Surfin', which is our West Coast dialyzed version. and it's usually about 6.5%. And I did this as a 9.5% imperial version. And since I call the
Oh
small
wow.
one Slurp Surf, and this one was Slurp Tsunamis, is just bigger and sounded cool. But that one, I mean, especially at the Denver Rare Beer, which is just chock full of so many different types of barrel aged barley wines and barrel aged imperial stouts and super sours and things like that. Having an IPA, even one that's 9.5%, is a really good palate refresher. And
Yeah.
also one that rides the thiol flavorings of like guava and grapefruit zest and passion fruit and all that. So it just comes off almost like as a fruited IPA, but it's still really bright and brisk and still very West Coasty. It still uses hops like Simcoe and Citra Lupamax and things like that, and Mosaic. So it's definitely still IPA, but comes out with a really huge hop fruit character to it. So people loved both beers a lot, and I think it was one of the best responses we got. And one of the coolest things about that too is that event has a lot of repeat people, because once you go and experience that, it's like the big thing with that is you have around 50 to 70 breweries that are all pouring the rarest stuff that they have, and then they're all also being represented by the highest ranked person available from the staff of the brewery. So you'll see like icons of the industry, like Tommy Author was there pouring at Lost Abbey this time around, and you see like Garrett
Very
Oliver's there
nice.
almost every year. You have Sam Calagione pouring a lot of times from Dogfish Head. You see a ton of people that are, Jim Cook was pouring for Sam Adams a couple of years and stuff. So you get to see people that are really influential in the industry, but also like a lot of people that return that are just really big fans of beer and how it develops and rare offerings. They come up and you only see them that one time a year because they live in Las Vegas or they live in California or whatever, and being able to reconnect with them, it's literally like a reunion sort of thing. So, and it all goes to prostate cancer charities, and so it's a great cause, and I've been part of it every year that we done it. The first year that we did it was what kicked me off into knowing that this is what I wanted to do for a living. So it's
Very,
an awesome time.
very, very cool. And you mentioned Little Slurp, and it occurs to me we haven't actually done the beers of the week yet, so we've been moving along. Are you drinking anything over there, Chad, right now, or?
Not right now. I got to wake up at midnight to go into the brewery, so I didn't grab a beer for it, but yeah, so I might be able to run down and grab something if you need some cheers or
No,
anything like
you,
that.
you
But
know
yeah,
what? Remembering that you have that super early wake up time. We won't force that upon you, but yeah.
it's also on the other side of the building, so that is
Oh yeah. Let's not derail the whole show for that. That's fine.
right.
But in spirit, we'll just assume you're drinking a little Slurp or something
I
like that.
usually do. I usually am, so that's usually my go-to. So
So
Yeah, so
for the beer, go ahead, Nate.
well, I was going to say we wanted to thank our partners at the Nest for
Ah,
sponsoring our beers of the week. Nest beer, barbecue, nachos. Right now they've got their Nestoberfest. It's a 2-week celebration of all things fall: beer cheese, schnitzel, pretzels, bratwurst, and 48 taps of cold beer. But if that's not really your thing, they also have Mean Girls trivia on October the 3rd. That's this upcoming Tuesday. So go out, grab yourself a beer. Say thanks to the guys at the Nest for helping us put on this show.
it's great. And so what we have an entire lineup of NoDa beers. Obviously, we've got Little Slurp. It's a juicy IPA.
nice.
It's 6%. We've got NoDa's Gorgeous, which is the pumpkin ale and or pumpkin beer at 6.4%. And we have the NoDa Cheerwine. And I'm currently drinking that. I'm showing that to the people watching the live stream. But yeah, this is a fun one. It's a collaboration beer. And of course, we've got NoDa's Hop Drop and Roll, which we've been talking about. But we probably should get back to the NoDa Cheerwine, because that's been a particular, kind of a love of ours, something that we went out of our way to find when we first heard about it being released. And how did that come to be? I think it makes a lot of sense that it's a thing, but it's something that when we saw it, like, oh, really? I didn't see that coming. So how did that come to be?
Yeah, that was interesting. We were really honored that they came to us. I think a lot of it was the fact that we're essentially a family-run company. It's a husband and wife, founders, and then I'm a co-owner, and I frequently joked I'm kind of an unofficially adopted son of the two. And then then we have Susie's the president's son is also a co-owner. So we're very family-oriented. And they're a family-run company as well. And I think a lot of our values kind of lined up. And they had to find a company that could fit the distribution market that they wanted to do for production side, but also was able to match up to the values that they wanted to work with and whatnot. So the fact that they came to us in general was amazing. It was difficult for me as a brewer because they're like, we want to make a Cheerwine beer. I'm like, do you want to make it just like Cheerwine with alcohol, or do you want it to be a craft beer with featuring Cheerwine? And they're like, we want it to be, after a lot of discussion, they're like, we want it to be a beer first with Cheerwine to be a big focus of it. And I was like, okay, I think I can do that. And it was the first time I've ever tried to incorporate a soda like flavoring into a beer. I frequently say that, there's a beer out there for every palate, so to speak. And then I was like, I don't think I've ever tried to do it though with the soda to start out. So Cheerwine's a pretty aggressively, flavored beer itself. So yeah. And so I tried a couple like blonde ales. I was like, we could do a lager, but honestly, I don't for being able to produce the amount that's needed and tank latency and stuff like that. I don't want to rush out a lager to try to meet demand on it, and it's not going to be fast anyway. So we kind of X that to begin with. Did a normal ale and then a red ale to kind of match the color, and any little bit of caramel or roast that we put into the beer just really conflicted with the Cheerwine flavoring. And I don't use like their syrup in it. I told them specifically that I would rather get just the raw flavoring compounds that they use, because I don't want anything to re-ferment in post and whatnot. So I was like, don't. And also it's like, even if I put it in fermenter, it's going to change what their flavoring is anyway, because it's going to take away the sugar, and then you have a whole different mound of stuff going on with that. So they gave me basically their actual flavor compound itself. So we inject that into post, and what we came up with was essentially an American wheat ale. It's about 35% wheat malt, a little bit of carafoam in it, and then and a little bit of acidulated malt just for pH balance, and then just normal 2-row. Very simple hop bill because it doesn't need to put a lot of hops forward on it. And then we ferment it on a couple thousand pounds of cherries. So we do dark red cherries from Oregon Fruit Company, ferment on that, and then when the fermentation is done, we throw in the bright tank with the flavoring in it. And so you have basically this cherry wheat that has this accent of the Cheerwine itself. And it's a fairly straightforward beer, but finding the combination to work with their very signature flavor of the Cheerwine, while also kind of paying homage to that flavoring with the cherry and things of that nature, and giving it like a kiss of the color to it with the cherry fermentation, but also making it a fairly straightforward but still kind of craft at nature ale on top of it. Because when we did like the blonde ale and stuff, they're like, this is too light of a beer. We want it to actually still taste like a full craft beer itself. So that's how it all came about, and we launched it. I mean, it was crazy when we launched the thing. We had 720 barrels packaged, and we had 720 barrels behind it, and we still ran out of it to fulfill orders. So we're still running it, and probably going to have some more cool stuff coming down the pipeline with them going forward. But yeah, it's ultimately pretty straightforward beer. But when you have a collaboration of this level, most of the time we do collaborations, it's a 60 barrel batch or less. It's very rarely even as big as a 60. So turning it into a year round beer for us, that's like a constant collaboration. We really want to make sure that not only we were happy with the formulation, but they were really happy with the formulation as well. And they've been really, really awesome to help co-promote it. And I usually can see from the can itself, there's a lot of shared imagery from them. And it's very obviously its own thing, but it's like unmistakably a Cheerwine featured product. So yeah, so we're hoping to go through that as a year rounder, and even possibly do different formats and things of that nature with it. We're still thinking of some different options with it, but it was a very dramatic kickoff to what will hopefully be a really good long relationship with them. And again, we're really honored that they even came to us to begin with.
So I had a thought about what I'm drinking at this time, and I have two questions come to mind. First off, did you tweak the recipe a little bit from the first time around? Because it seems like the Cheerwine might pop a little bit more than it did the first time I had it. And also, are you thinking about an imperial and or barrel aged version of this beer?
Barrel aged, no, but imperial, yeah, I've definitely thought about it. I think of almost imperializing just about anything just to see what it'd be like. But yeah, that, and then different flavor variation runoffs and things of that nature. I actually did because we really liked. We had a limited release that we do that's an imperial porter with peanut butter and chocolate called Captain Peanut Butter's Chocolate Revenge. And that mixed with Cheerwine was really, really good. Like, it was just like a bizarrely good combination. And so I ended up making a small batch of a of a actually it was a chocolate infused dark wheat beer with moon pies and the mash and then lactose and vanilla in it as well. And it's basically called it Southern Classic Combo. So it was like a cheerwine and moon pie together. And we actually would take moon pies and dunk into it and stuff. So it was really, I mean, we would never do that on the big system because I don't know if we could get that many moon pies up on the system. But yeah, I definitely thought about that. As far as tweaking the recipe, the only variation that happened in it was we found out because we were using so many cherries that when we were just outsourcing the cherry purees, there was inconsistency on the sourcing of the cherries. So that was the biggest deviation that we saw happen. So we're chewing through all these different cherries on, and they all look basically the same when we're pouring them in. But we noticed that there was some that were giving more color, specifically ones from Oregon fruit, which is what we exclusively try to source from now. Then there was some that we did from different suppliers that didn't seem to give quite the same amount of bricks or same intensity. But as far as the cheerwine flavor amounts, it's been the same amount per batch every batch that we've done on it. And but the cherry's the only thing that we didn't change it. It just we kind of discovered there was deviation in it in post. So hopefully we work through most of that now, and we pretty much have learned that we have to stick on the Oregon fruit ones because they're the most consistent so far. There is fruit deviation that happens like that weirdly. Like last year, raspberries went through it for whatever reason. The raspberry harvests were coming in, and I had to add like 15% more raspberry on any beer that I did raspberries to normally. Basically across the board to get the same effect. We do a raspberry seltzer, and on small batch, I would have to put basically about 0.7 pound per barrel of raspberry, and I had to up it to 1 pound per barrel on it just for that year for some reason. And I talked to several brewers that had the same experience, so that was not an intentional tweak, just kind of a thing that happened.
No, that makes sense. If you don't really think about how much variance there can be in fruits and vegetables. I mean, I do anytime I get a tomato from the store and it has zero flavor, and then you get the one that actually is, oh my goodness, this is what a tomato actually tastes like, So I can definitely see that being a contributing factor. Had the batch that I got my hands on had a less vibrant cherry going into it, and that does seem, because it's a little bit more of a prominent feature of it, whereas before I thought it seemed like it was a little bit more of a subtle addition towards the end. Nate, did you get into it? Have you poured that one yet?
Oh, I'm drinking it right now, and I'm blown away that this is actually a beer because it tastes
Thanks.
almost like what I remember the last time I had a cheerwine.
Appreciate it. Thank you.
Yeah,
I'm actually really disappointed that I can't go down to my local beer store and buy this myself. I have to drive all the way to North Carolina or South Carolina to get me a can.
So, yeah. So maybe one day we'll see. Especially now that it's not it's not a one and off, so sort of beer. So
one day soon. Well, we really should give a thanks to some of our sponsors. Nate, what do you have for Terrapin Brewery Atlanta for us? Tell us about it.
Brian, fall, last I checked, is officially here. Summer fought until the last minute, but I have accepted that it is time for the seasons to change. And most folks are getting psyched up for football, but as much as I say I'll be missing baseball, Braves made it into the playoffs. So the regular season ends this weekend, but playoffs are coming up next, and hopefully our Braves can bring home not only another pennant, but another World Series championship. If you're going to catch some of that postseason action and need a beer at Truist Park, which is where the Braves play, who's there for you? Terrapin Brewery at Atlanta. They'll be here for the World Series games when they happen, and even after the season's over. Terrapin will still be open, serving fresh beer and Foxboro's barbecue. They had some fun stuff over the summer. They had a great Kolsch, fun pale ale with experimental yeast, and just a bit of some of that OTP cold IPA. But as we roll into fall, they've got their Oktoberfest on tap, and seasonal creep is done. We're in Oktoberfest season, so bring on the fest beer. And I always look forward to the Terrapin Stouts, which we're sure to be seeing soon. Whether you're heading to Truist Park for baseball, a concert at the Roxy, or just to hang out, make sure you check out what's on tap at Terrapin Brewery Atlanta.
Yeah, that sounds great. Sounds great. Of course, another option you have out there is Truck and Tap, or the Taps at Feast, which is another one of their properties that's near there in the in Truist Park, and so you could hit that right after you go to Terrapin Brewery Atlanta. But if you're going to Truck and Tap, a lot of people on social media, or recently they've been talking about what's the ideal number of taps that you should have on at your brewery or tap room? Like, what's too many? What's too few? And I would argue personally that I think the right number is around 20, which just happens to be the number that you're going to
Oh, really?
find at Truck and Tap, give or take a tap or two. Well, there's absolutely nothing wrong with a small and curated draft beer list. I want options. I like a list. I like to be able to agonize over my good options a little bit and decide what I want to have next. And if I can't decide, I can always resort to Truck and Tap Roulette and leave it up to
Mhm.
fate. And once you've had some of those beer options, of course, you're going to want to have something to eat. And that's when things get interesting at Truck and Tap. They've got a new food truck on site every day. So your no two experiences at Truck and Tap will ever be the same. So if you'd like to know what's on before you show up, if you need a little bit of an idea of what you're going to be doing, you can go to truckandtap.com. You'll see both the tap list and the food truck menu for the day. Don't forget, they've got 4 locations now to choose from. You've got Woodstock, you've got Alpharetta, Duluth, and now Lawrenceville. It's the most beer and food truck options the law allows. And believe it or not, one more option, straight to jail. So,
Yep,
and
straight to
actually
jail.
one less option, also jail. But they got it dialed in just right, so no jail time for you. So thank you, Truck and Tap. Thank you, Terrapin Brewery Atlanta. You know what? Speaking of fall, I think we got to talk a little bit more about Gorgeous. I mean, I know that's something that's it's a big deal for you guys, and you even won a gold for that at GABF in 2018. Is that right, Chad?
And yep, and 2020.
And
We won 2.
2020. So
Yep,
double down.
gold
Oh,
medal
that's
both
right.
times.
We did talk about that. Doubling down on it. Yeah,
Yeah,
it's in the notes. I missed that part.
it's all good. Yeah, that's it's our number one selling seasonal. It's been, we released it as partially, we were the first ones in the area really doing a dedicated pumpkin beer. It's at the time when we made it, which was the first year that we opened up. There wasn't a lot of breweries that did any sort of deviation from pumpkin beer, and they certainly weren't ones locally around that much. But you rarely found pumpkin beers in the area doing actual pumpkin in it, for one. And the whole genesis of the beer came as a stupid idea in a homebrew garage before I even, well before NoDa even kicked off. And it was literally, I was just tired of every single pumpkin beer being a light amber ale with cinnamon and nutmeg and a tertiary spice in it. And then a couple months later, with the winter warmer would come out and be a slightly darker beer with cinnamon and nutmeg and a different spice in it. And I'm like, this is just getting old. And it was all the beers that I liked. I was more interested in their tertiary or their extra spices that weren't cinnamon and nutmeg. So I was like, I'm going to make a pumpkin spice beer and make it with actual pumpkin in it, make it a really nice hearty amber beer to begin with. And then I'm going to use my own spice blend. I'm not going to use cinnamon or nutmeg in it. So my own spice blend is allspice, cardamom, clove, ginger, and brown sugar. And the beer itself is a really deep amber, I guess you'd call American red, at almost 6.5% alcohol. And when I first brewed it, I had a bunch of buddies and me go out and try to find the biggest pumpkin we could find. We found a 78-pound pumpkin, and I used that as the mash tun. So I cored it out and
That's cool.
mashed in the pumpkin, and then basically took the meat after I lathered out of it and everything, and dumped the grain out and roasted that in the oven, and added it to the boil and whatnot with all the spices and everything. So that was the first inception of Gorgeous, and I put in some homebrew showcases, not competitions really, and people went nuts for it. And so we did it on the big scale, and yeah, we did something like 14 batches of it this year, I believe, and we do an imperial version. See, I always think about the imperials. Now it's called Drop Dead Gorgeous, which is basically just a 9% version of it. But yeah, it's insanely popular. A lot of it is because it's it hit the market and got a fan following behind it early on. It is definitely fall spice and hits fall and pumpkin all the time, but it doesn't have that cinnamon or nutmeg. I really think the secret ingredient to it is the cardamom, because that adds like this cola-y sort of spice to it. But like, there's no part of it that doesn't ring autumn, when you smell it.
Mm-hmm.
And then it's also the fact that it does actually use real pumpkin in it, and that adds a starchy sort of character that really is kind of unlike anything if you don't use the pumpkin in it. And yeah, it's just different enough, but it's still really familiar, and it's always a big hit for us. And luckily we got gold medal twice with it. But it's one of those beers where, like, even if we did win those, I mean, it was already our number one selling seasonal before we won the gold for it. So that was really just icing on the cake. So we
Very
don't
nice.
love making it because it's very intensive with all the ingredients going into it. We like hand crack the spices in it, and pumpkin in the mash makes the lauder a really fun time, so and we make it in the middle of the summer to have it ready for the end of summer, because that's when you release pumpkin beers now. And throwing all that dark grain there. This beer has like Carafoam, Cara Munich, Special W, big Cara Amber Malt, Vienna Malt in it. So all these like darker specialty grains, and there's a large amount of them. So like you're up there sweating because so hot, and all that dark grain bits like get all over you, and then you got to run down and try to nurse the lauder over and hand crack a bunch of spices and haul up some the ginger and everything like that. So it's very intensive, but we're always proud of what comes out of it every year, and there's a ton of people that look forward to it. And it's one of those beers that actually stays very shelf stable too. So a lot of people age them up just to try to have last year's versus this year and stuff like that. So it's a fun, involved beer overall, and I'm very proud of how it came out, and the fact that it came out of a really dumb idea in a garage. With trying to be like, I'm tired of cinnamon and nutmeg, and now it's one of our best selling beers. So I think it's regularly in like the top 8 best selling beers of us year round, but it's only available in a couple months. For a couple months. So so that shows you just how popular it is for our market.
Yeah. Hey, and so you mentioned seasonal creep about how you got to release pumpkin beers early. We noticed that you're releasing Hoppy Holidays IPA in about a month. What can you tell us about it?
Yep. Well, we brewed it today and tomorrow. Actually, that's why I'm going in early to brew. So that beer is a great. Yes, that's a great American IPA. Uses some of our most tried and true hops with that. With Simcoe, it's very Simcoe forward because we really wanted to make it like if IPA was a Christmas tree, that's sort of an approach to it. Because also, like, as you guys know, in Atlanta, there's not a whole lot of real winter time in the Southeast, unless you're lucky and you actually get like a cold spell that comes through. And then we don't know how to handle it because of like ice on the road. No one know what are we supposed to do with this. But the winter warmer and winter ale concept, as much as we tried to run with it, it really doesn't kick off well for us and all. And most of any sort of like holiday themed like dark beers or stouts or anything never really caught on that much. So we wanted to like, well, IPAs are selling great. Let's just do kind of like a holiday themed IPA. And so, it's kind of like Gorgeous emulates fall and autumn, even though it doesn't have cinnamon and nutmeg and it doesn't taste exactly like every quintessential pumpkin pie. It still smells of autumn. And I feel like everyone's like conceptual idea of what the winter time is like kind of goes with that spruce piney essence and whatnot.
Sure.
So we use a lot of Simcoe in it. We use some Citra, Centennial, Amarillo, and then we dry hop it with a pretty heavy amount of Simcoe, and then we actually add spruce tips to it as well. So you get this bright, clean American IPA. It sits right at like 6.6% alcohol. So it's not like insanely heavy. It's not as heavy as like Hop Drop is, but it's not sessionable or anything like that either. And it comes out with this real bright herbaceousness from the spruce, and then that's paired up really well with that really sharp, classic resiny Simcoe hit that is classic to IPAs, but also kind of leans into that whole piney character as well. So it's a big hit for us, and I'm looking forward to it. It smells really good already fermenting.
So with the spruce, what you're really getting from that, because I've always wondered when people use spruce in beer, and I like it. And as a home brewer, I experimented with it, didn't come out well, but I like it conceptually. And I've always wondered, like, what are you looking for out of the spruce that you can't get out of the hops? And I guess it's like that pine and herbaceousness, right? Like it's just a unique
it's definitely the
quality.
herbaceous like oiliness to it. Yeah, and if you want to have like that kind of resiny thing going on, it also the hardest thing about it is just finding the dial in. When you're home brewing, it's super hard because if you squeeze too hard on the dropper, you're going to get too much in it. Luckily with us when we're running it, I think this year we're doing 180 barrels of it. It's easy to dial in like the amount because you're such a larger scale, and we've been doing it so many times. There's not a whole lot of variation year to year on how much to use. So it's it is you have to go soft with it, but it definitely comes through pretty easily. So it's fun, and it's not for everyone, but there's a beer for everyone, but there's no one beer for everyone. You know what I mean? Mm-hmm. So if you want to try something that kind of takes that that pine character of a West Coast IPA, and then kind of like swings it kind of hard to the herbaceous side and a little bit more resiny, oily character to it. It's definitely a fun thing to do. And again, it's, not a lot of beers I think that are fun to get into just to kind of see what it's like. I'm not going to say it's going to be something you crave all year long or something like that, but it's cool to kind of like in the spirit of the season, like let's drink a liquid Christmas tree, or something, or pine tree or whatever, and
Yeah.
it's like some people want gorgeous all year round. It's like, no, I'm good. I want it when it's when it's actually fall and stuff like that. But there are some people who crave it, in this in the summer and whatnot, and it's like that's fine. It just depends on what your taste buds are wanting to do. And honestly, I love classic styles, and there's some of my favorite things to be able to be like, that's a perfect example of blah blah blah. But sometimes it's fun to just take something that's a really solid example and just kind of tweak it weirdly and just be like, let's see what it's like if you kind of screw with it a little bit, and then and theme it to like the holiday season and everything like that. And that's fun to that. So I think that's the best thing to describe Hoppy Holidays, and it's an IPA with a little bit of fun sprinkled in for the holidays. So.
There you go. And you're absolutely right with the whole pumpkin thing. I'm not a big pumpkin beer fan myself. Typically, I do like a pumpkin pie, but seriously, that window for pumpkin pie is so short. Like it's here and it's gone really, really quick. So
exactly.
We talked about Hoppy Holidays coming up. You're brewing that, getting that ready. You've got an anniversary coming up too. Is that? I think I saw that
Yep.
might be like the end of October. Is that what we're looking at? Or
yep,
I'm
October 28th. I think is October 29th is the actual anniversary. I think we're going to be celebrating on the 28th, if I'm not mistaken, or that weekend prior to. And we're going to be doing some fun stuff. We have a few things still kind of being solidified, but we're definitely going to be having bands and activities and food trucks and things of that nature. I do have some cool beers in the pipeline that are going to be really limited release. I actually brewed one of them today. So we do a wet hopped beer every year called Sticky When Wet, and we ordered a little additional of the wet hops, and I made a hazy version of it called Hazy When Wet. Wasn't going to swing all the way to call it Juicy When Wet. I think that might have been flagged a little bit, but
a little too far.
A little too far. But this will be our first time doing a hazy with our wet hop Citra. So I'm really excited about that. It smelled so good coming out. I did a cool pool on it, so brought it down to about 180 degrees and threw all the wet hops into it and ran it through, and it just smelled awesome. So we have that. I have a double dry hop to double IPA called 12 Times the Charm, kind of in a nod to the 12th anniversary, which is just full blown West Coast, 8.8% double IPA to be tapped room available, and very limited throughout the area. 5-barrel batch run, and then we are returning our first major sour project we did. It's called Boba Brett, which is a kind of an American wild ale. This is be 4 years resting in the feeders, and it's tasting bizarre right now. So I'm doing that, and I'm doing a slight fruited version of that as well. It'd be like a berry blend Boba Brett on raspberries and blackberries. So, and maybe one or two other fun things along in the pipeline. But trying to do 12 beers for 12 years is not going to be a thing that we try to do. I had to put the cap on it somewhere. We did one year. I think it was our 5 or 6 year anniversary. We've been in the new system for like a year or two. And we did, I think it was 6. It was like 6 new beers, or some of them returning or whatnot that had been canceled before, and doing small canny runs of each one of them at the same time. And we had just gotten a new labeler in, and I'm like, this is so stupidly annoying to do. Like, let's never do this again. So, and also like when you're at 12, it's like, do I make like a 12 ingredients and 12% alcohol with 12? It gets really bizarre. That's why, because there's like 12 times the charms. That just makes it sound fun, and instead of being like 4 different hops and 3 different malts, and you times 4 and 3 together and equals 12. And it's just people don't want to do math when they're trying to order a beer. So it'll be fun, and it'll be up at the North End tap room area, and it's gonna be a good time. I'm very lucky to make it for 12 years in this, and keep growing and keep expanding everything. And we have our awesome local community to thank for that, and the expanding home turf as well as we go through the Carolinas and whatnot. So we're very, very fortunate, and this is my dream job. As much as I does might not sound all that sexy to wake up and go to work at 1 a.m. tomorrow and everything like that, I wouldn't rather be doing anything else. And we're only able to do that because of how awesome the community's been in supporting us.
Definitely. So we've covered a lot of ground. Is there anything we didn't touch on yet that you'd like to talk about, or?
No, I mean, we can go deeper into anything if y'all want to. I know we talked about the slurp stuff and whatnot,
Yeah.
but you know, if that's fine. I know it's yeah, whatever you guys want to talk about, I'm open book on it. I have a big transparency policy where it's like, if you pay money to put the thing I make into your body, then you should have the knowledge of what goes behind it. So, you know, or anything that's going on at the brewery itself in general. If I have, you know, the insight, I'll let you know. So
Okay.
otherwise,
Yeah.
I'm good.
I was just thinking we're about at time, so if there was anything else that you wanted to get in really quick, and if not, we do appreciate you joining us. One thing we definitely need to get is, how do people keep up with what is going on at NoDa Brewing? Where are the
that was
social
the
media
next thing I was
accounts
gonna
and
say.
whatnot? Yeah,
I was just gonna say, just we're on every bit of the social media outpost, you know, with Instagram and X, I guess now instead of Twitter,
Yes.
Facebook, and everything like that. You can also get involved with us by if you go to our website or to our Facebook page, which is just NoDa Brewing company, and or NoDaBrewing.com. And then obviously Instagram is just NoDa Brewing and whatnot. If you want to become a NoDa Brewing insider, you get, you know, personal emails of all updates of upcoming events and things of that nature. Any sort of major news flash that gets emailed directly to you. I know a lot of people don't rely on email all that much, but that's really kind of the first like true mass post that we do that comes in direct feed to you. So if you want to check that out, that's a great way to stay up to date on all this stuff. We do always have a ton of different events going on, and we're really big on doing a bunch of diverse charity work. And so we have multiple events actually this week that's all based in different charities. When we do local or national wide, and you know, we do a lot of collaborations and things of that nature too. So we got a lot of stuff coming down the pipeline, everything from a bunch of really small system stuff coming up with collaborations and charity collaborations and homebrew collaborations, and then also major launch release, just like the Cheer Wine was being a major, you know, launch for us and whatnot. We try to keep several of those things in line, and the Slurp series is always evolving and always really fun and different. And that's our thing. We want to be that brewery that's super consistent and reliable, but we also want to be consistently counted on creating new exciting stuff for people to look forward to. So try to hit on both sides of it. And that's a difficult thing to do, but that's, you know, that's why we have the jobs, you know, it's to make sure we keep stuff consistent and keep things consistently exciting. So you follow us on anything NoDa Brewing, NoDaBrewing.com.
Yeah. And I did look at your website, and I will say you guys do an exceptional job of laying out all of your events and even making them categorized so you can click on them. So I was poking through to see what releases were separate from other events. So that's a cool thing. I like what you're doing. So anyway, and that about wraps it up for this episode of the Beer Guys Radio. Make sure you tune in next week, where we will be doing more talk about craft beer events. And I'm not sure what's on the schedule for next week. I forgot to check, but make sure you subscribe on your favorite app so you don't miss a show. And as always, have a great week, and don't forget to drink local. Cheers.
Cheers, guys. Thank you.
Later.
All righty, that's a wrap on the recording part. We're still streaming, so
Okay.
I didn't have a chance to fit it in, but somebody commented that you guys need to do a collab with Duke's Mayonnaise. I'm not sure how you would pull that off.
Sure, why not?
Yeah, right. I mean,
I actually hate mayonnaise too. I love it as as an ingredient and stuff, but like as a condiment by itself, I hate it. So, but sure, well, you know, if it's in the cards, I'll try to figure out a way to do it. I actually have a friend that's now a brewmaster back at another local spot. It's called Lower Left. He used to live next to me when I did the garage home brewing and stuff, and we used to say that we needed to come together to make the world's worst beer as a black and tan concept, and basically do a chicken wing, like a buffalo chicken wing red ale and a blue cheese cream ale, and do a black and tan version of it, and just be like, we've done it. We've created the most disgusting beer of all time. But
what's the name?
Yeah. So
what's the name of the brewery out in Texas? Martin House. So you were doing a Martin House, right? Yeah.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah. But that was years ago. That was 15, 16 years ago, I think, when we were talking about that. But it comes up every now and then. But yeah, I actually, because I didn't know the semantics of it, but like I know with Cheerwine, I knew they distributed Sun Drop, but I thought maybe they had a tighter. I didn't know what their business relationship was. I was like, we should just do a Sun Drop and roll and make Hop Drop and just infuse it with Sun Drop. while we're at it, and of course they're not the exact same company, but I'd still be up for trying that, to be completely honest. But yeah, I mean, I don't like to say no to a lot of stuff. If I can make it work out and it makes us and another party happy, then
Have you
I'll
had to
try to
say
do something.
Have you had to say no to anything? Has anybody come to you like with a? I'm assuming nobody's come at you with mayonnaise beer, but have you had to
No,
try to
not
say
yet.
no to anything else?
Yeah, it's really not been as much on, unless I'm just blanking on anything in memory. Because 12 years has been quite a while. We release a new beer every single week, so it's one of those
Wow.
things where
Wow.
a lot of them in the past, I'm like, did I make that? I guess I did, But there's been most of the time when we say no, it's for semantics reasons. Either we don't have time to put it in the schedule, or what the other party wanted to do as far as co-promoting and things of that nature. It just didn't work out to be what they wanted and what we could fit in and provide. So it's rarely for the beer side. It's usually for all the other pieces that go into the puzzle and whatnot. So that's really the only time we have to be like, it's just not going to work out for either of our interests, basically.
Okay. You know what? I just occurred to me. You still have to get up at like midnight to go brew. So we're gonna have to say goodbye to you folks on the live stream. So Chad can get to work brewing the beer that you'll be drinking, in a
Much
couple
needed
of
rest,
weeks.
yeah.
So
Happy holidays.
thanks for hanging out with us. We'll catch you next
Absolutely.
week.
Thank you guys so much. I appreciate it.
Yep.
Cheers.
All right. Cheers. Bye.